The distress signal had traveled across the stars for 3 months before Earth received it. Ambassadors stood in the grand hall of the coalition headquarters, watching the screens that showed the edge of their territory. Another colony had fallen to the Horde yesterday. 15,000 civilians dead. The coalition was losing this war, and everyone knew it. His crystalline body flickered with nervous energy as he read the response message from Earth again. It was short and direct. "We received your call for help. We are coming. Prepare coordinates for arrival at 7. Earth Defense Force, Captain Commanding." Relief washed through the Coalition Council. Help was finally coming. They had sent distress calls to 40 different star systems. Only Earth had answered, organized a welcoming ceremony. Musicians practiced. Diplomats prepared speeches. The coalition military polished their dress uniforms. They would show these humans proper gratitude. General, a towering figure with 4 powerful arms, studied the limited data they had on Earth. The planet was located in a distant spiral arm of the galaxy. It had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Young species, he thought, probably eager to prove themselves to the galactic community. They would learn the reality of war soon enough. The day of arrival came. 7's orbital sensors detected the human fleet dropping out of FTL travel, stood on the landing platform with 100 other dignitaries. Flowers from 12 different worlds decorated the area. Cameras hovered to record this historic moment. Then the human ships appeared in the sky, and the festive mood died. The vessels looked wrong. They were not sleek and elegant like coalition ships. They were blocky and brutal, covered in armor plating and weapon systems. Strange symbols were painted on their hulls, images of skulls, creatures with bared fangs, words in human languages that the translators struggled with. Death from above, no mercy, first to fight. General felt his combat instincts activate. These were not exploration ships. These were warships, and they looked like they had seen battle many times before. The largest ship landed in the designated area. Its engines were loud and aggressive, kicking up dust and forcing the welcoming committee to step back. The boarding ramp descended with a hiss of hydraulics, adjusted his translator and prepared his welcoming speech. Captain walked down the ramp first. He was not tall by coalition standards, but something about the way he moved made him seem larger. His eyes swept across the assembled crowd in a pattern that recognized from predator species, scanning for threats, always watching. The captain wore a simple uniform with minimal decoration, but his bearing spoke of authority and experience. Behind him came his officers. Lieutenant moved with the grace of a dancer and the awareness of a soldier. Her hand rested near her sidearm out of habit. Dr. Sora carried a medical kit and scanning equipment, her eyes already analyzing the alien biology around her with professional interest. Sergeant descended the ramp last and heard several coalition guards shift nervously. The human was built like a war machine, all muscle and controlled power. Stepped forward, raising his primary appendages in the coalition gesture of welcome. "Captain, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, we welcome you too." "Where are the positions?" Captain interrupted. His voice was calm but carried an edge that suggested he did not waste time on ceremony. The assembled dignitaries looked at each other in confusion. General cleared his throat. "Captain, perhaps we should first discuss the political situation and—" General turned to face him directly. "You sent a distress call. You said you were being exterminated. We did not travel 3 months across space to attend parties. Where is the enemy?" Lieutenant stepped forward with a data pad. "Our sensors detected weapons fire in the 6th sector during our approach. Is that where yours is located?" General felt something shift in his understanding of the situation. These humans were not here to be welcomed and slowly integrated into the war effort. They were here to fight. Now. "Yes," he said slowly. "They are attacking our research station in that sector. We have 3,000 troops defending, but they are outnumbered 4 to 1. We expect the station to fall within 5 days." Sergeant smiled. It was not a friendly expression. "We can be there in 3 hours." The welcoming ceremony fell apart as the humans immediately began discussing strategy. They asked questions that made the coalition military staff uncomfortable. How many casualties per engagement? What were their attack patterns? Did they take prisoners? What biological weapons did they use? Where were their supply lines? Dr. Sara examined the combat footage with clinical interest. Their exoskeletons have weak points at the joints. Their eyes are sensitive to certain light frequencies. They rely on pheromone communication, which means disrupting their chemical signals would create chaos in their ranks. She had identified 3 tactical advantages in under 10 minutes. Coalition had been studying them for 2 years. A strategy meeting was called in the command center. Coalition generals presented their defensive plans. They showed fallback positions, evacuation routes, and supply line protections. It was a plan designed to slow the advance while minimizing casualties. Lieutenant listened politely, then pulled up her own tactical display. "With respect, General, your plan is designed to lose slowly. We do not lose slowly. We win quickly." Her plan appeared on the screen. Coalition officers stared in horror. It involved aggressive forward positions, small unit infiltration tactics, close quarters combat, and deliberate engagement with superior enemy forces. The projected casualty rates were catastrophic by coalition standards. "This is madness," General said firmly. "You will lose half your forces in the first day." Captain looked at him with those predator eyes. "No, we will not." There was absolute certainty in his voice. Realized with growing unease that the human commander was not being arrogant. He simply knew something the coalition did not. "Captain," said carefully, "perhaps you do not understand the nature of they are vicious and relentless. They do not retreat. They do not surrender. They kill everything in their path." "Good," Sergeant said from the back of the room. "Neither do we." The meeting ended with reluctant agreement. The humans would be allowed to deploy to the research station under siege. Coalition forces would provide support but maintain their defensive positions. General assigned observers to document the human tactics for future study. As the humans prepared to leave, approached Dr. Sara. "May I ask a personal question?" "Of course," she replied while checking her medical supplies. "Your species seems very comfortable with violence. Is Earth a peaceful world?" Sora looked up at him and saw something in her eyes that frightened him, sadness mixed with hard truth. "Ambassador, Earth is a death world. Our oceans have creatures that can swallow ships whole. Our land has predators that can run for days without stopping. Our diseases have killed billions. Our weather can level cities. We spent 200,000 years learning to survive on a planet that wanted us dead. And we did more than survive. We thrived. We became the apex predator." She closed her medical kit and smiled gently. "You sent a call for help into the dark. You wanted someone to save you from the monsters, but you should have been more specific about what kind of help you wanted, because you did not call for peacekeepers or diplomats or mediators. You called for soldiers, and we are very good at what we do." Watched the humans board their ships and launch toward the battle zone. The crystalline formations that made up his body vibrated with an emotion he had not felt in decades. Fear. Not fear of but fear of what the coalition had just unleashed. General stood beside him on the observation deck. "What have we done?" the general whispered. Had no answer. In the distance, human warships accelerated toward their weapons hot and their crews eager. The coalition had called for salvation. But as watched those predatory ships vanish into the darkness of space, he wondered if they had actually summoned something far more dangerous than the enemy they faced. The real beasts had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Coalition research station hung in space like a wounded animal. Its outer ring was with weapons fire. 2 of its docking bays were open to vacuum where boarding parties had breached the hull. Inside, 3,000 coalition soldiers fought a desperate defense against an enemy that outnumbered them 4-1. Commander crouched behind a barricade on the station's third level. His ammunition was running low. His troops were exhausted. They had been fighting for 17 days straight. Every day, the push deeper into the station. Every day, more coalition soldiers died. The evacuation ships could not reach them through the blockade. They were trapped, and they all knew how this would end. "Commander, we have incoming ships," his sensor officer called out. They are human vessels." Felt a flicker of something he had not felt in weeks. Hope, perhaps, or maybe just curiosity about what death would look like when it finally came. The Coalition had mentioned that reinforcements were coming from Earth, but he had stopped believing in reinforcements 10 days ago. "How many ships?" he asked. 3, and one small transport heading for Docking Bay 7. 3 ships commanded 3,000 soldiers, and they were losing. What could 3 ships do? He pushed the thought aside. Any help was better than no help. "Clear Bay 7 for docking. Get me a squad to meet our guests." Sergeant felt the transport settle onto the station's deck with a solid thump. Around him, his assault team checked their weapons one final time. 20 humans against an army of aliens. The odds made him smile. He liked a challenge. "Remember," Lieutenant said over the comm from the command ship, "we are here to show them what humans can do. Make it impressive." "Copy that," replied. He turned to his team. "You heard the lieutenant. Let us give these aliens a show they will never forget." The airlock opened, stepped onto the station, and immediately analyzed his surroundings. The bay was damaged but functional. Blast marks on the walls. The smell of burned metal and something else. Fear. The Coalition soldiers looked exhausted and broken. They stared at the humans with confusion and barely hidden disappointment. Commander approached, his three-eyed face showing signs of stress. "You are the reinforcements." "Sergeant, Earth Defense Force. Yes, we are your reinforcements. But there are only 20 of you." Checked his rifle. 20 is all you need. Before could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. "Attack Level 3, Sectors 9 through 12, the automated system announced. "All personnel to defensive positions." The Coalition soldiers around them grabbed their weapons and ran toward the battle. They moved slowly, weighed down by fear and fatigue, watched them go, then looked at his team. "Well, we did come here to fight. Let us go meet these." "Wait," said desperately. "You do not understand. This is a major assault. There will be hundreds of them. You need to stay in the safe zones and—" Was already walking toward the sound of gunfire. His team followed in perfect formation, stood frozen for a moment, then ran after them. Either these humans were insane, or they knew something he did not. The battle on Level 3 was chaos. Warriors poured through a breach in the hull, their bodies moving with terrifying speed. They were 2 meters tall with razor-sharp claws and mandibles that could tear through armor. The Coalition soldiers fell back, firing desperately, trying to contain the swarm. Then the humans arrived. Did not take a defensive position. He ran forward into the enemy. His team moved with him in a coordinated pattern that looked like a dance. They did not bunch up like Coalition soldiers. They spread out, covered angles, communicated with quick hand signals and brief words. The first warrior lunged at. He the attack with minimal movement, letting the creature's momentum carry it past him. His rifle barked 3 times. All 3 rounds hit the weak points Dr. Sora had identified at the joints. The collapsed. More came. The humans did not panic. They moved through the swarm like they had done this 1,000 times before. They aimed for weak points. They used the environment as cover. They coordinated their fire so that no shot was wasted. When got too close, they switched to close combat without hesitation. One of soldiers was pulled to the ground by a warrior. The Coalition observers gasped, expecting to see the human torn apart. Instead, the human jammed his combat knife into the creature's eye socket and used the dying's own body as a shield against incoming attacks. He was back on his feet in seconds. The Coalition soldiers stopped retreating. They stood and watched as 20 humans held a position against 200. It should have been impossible. It was impossible by every tactical manual the Coalition had ever written. But the humans did not care about what was impossible. They simply fought. Felt a claw rake across his armor. Pain flared in his side. He ignored it and kept fighting. Pain was just information. It told him he was still alive. The warrior that had wounded him learned a hard lesson about human durability when turned and shot it 3 times in rapid succession. Lieutenant watched the battle through the station's security cameras from her command ship. Data streamed across her screens, movement patterns, Coalition defensive positions, structural weak points. She processed it all in seconds and opened a channel to the station's commander. "Commander, this is Lieutenant. Your defensive line is about to collapse on level 4. They are digging through the maintenance tunnels. You have approximately 6 minutes before they emerge behind your troops." Stared at his tactical display in shock. She was right. How had she seen that when his own sensors had missed it? "What do we do?" "Pull your forces back to Checkpoint Delta. Seal bulkheads 9 through 14. We will handle the flanking force." "But that means abandoning 3 levels of the station." "Yes, you are spread too thin. Consolidate your forces. Let them come to you. And trust me, Commander, we know what we are doing." Gave the orders, even though every instinct screamed against retreat. But something about the human's confidence made him believe. His forces pulled back, sealing themselves into a defensive position. The emerging from the maintenance tunnels found humans waiting for them instead of an undefended flank. Engineer had spent the last 3 hours studying the station's layout. He had identified 17 entry points they could use. He had placed traps at 14 of them. The warriors that emerged from Tunnel 7 triggered an improvised explosive device made from the station's own power cells. The tunnel collapsed, killing dozens. Tunnel 9 had been flooded with a chemical mixture that had created from cleaning supplies and medical compounds. It ate through exoskeletons like acid. Tunnel 12 was now electrified to a level that would kill most species instantly. Dr. Sara monitored the human casualties from her medical station. 3 injured so far, none serious. The humans had a healing capacity that amazed her. They could fight through injuries that would incapacitate most Coalition species. She had watched take a wound that would have sent a soldier into shock, and he barely slowed down. She opened a channel to Captain on the flagship. "Captain, I recommend we deploy the biological countermeasure. They use pheromones for coordination. If we disrupt that, they will lose formation cohesion." "Do it," replied simply. Sara activated the dispensers that had installed throughout the station. A fine mist spread through the air in the combat zones. It was harmless to humans and Coalition species, but to thee it was chaos. Their chemical communication network broke down. They lost the ability to coordinate attacks. Individual warriors became confused, attacking randomly instead of as an organized force. The tide of battle shifted dramatically. Coalition soldiers watched in amazement as the seemingly unstoppable swarm fell apart. The creatures that had terrified them for weeks were suddenly vulnerable, confused, beatable. Press the advantage. All teams advance, keep them off balance, do not let them regroup. The humans pushed forward, and for the first time in 17 days, Coalition forces advanced instead of retreated. Found himself leading his troops forward alongside the human warriors. He saw his soldiers' faces change. The fear was being replaced by something else. Determination, anger, hope. The battle lasted 4 more hours. When it finally ended, the forces retreated. They left behind 200 dead warriors and abandoned their attempt to take the station. The Coalition had lost 12 soldiers in the fighting. The humans had lost none, though 6 were wounded. By the next morning, 5 of those 6 were back on duty. Commander stood in the command center, staring at the casualty reports. It did not make sense. 20 humans and 3,000 coalition soldiers against 800. By all logic, they should have been overrun. Instead, they had won decisively. Sergeant entered the command center, a bandage visible on his neck where a claw had come too close. He looked tired but satisfied. "Commander, we need to discuss expanding the defensive perimeter. They will be back, and next time they will bring more forces." "How can you be so calm?" asked. "That battle was. It was a skirmish," said simply. "Wait until we really get started." General reviewed the combat footage for the third time. Each viewing made him more uncomfortable. The humans fought with a combination of savage ferocity and calculated precision that he had never seen before. They moved like predators. They adapted to enemy tactics within minutes. When wounded, they kept fighting. When surrounded, they fought harder. He drafted a message to the Coalition Council. His hands shook slightly as he typed. "We may have made a grave mistake. We did not summon help. We have unleashed something far more dangerous." He paused, then added one more line. "They have never encountered serious resistance. They are about to learn what it means to face an apex predator. And I fear for what comes after they are gone, because these humans will still be here." On the research station, Coalition soldiers gathered around small groups of humans, asking questions about tactics and equipment. The humans answered freely, sharing knowledge that changed how the Coalition troops thought about combat. They were not just reinforcements. They were teachers showing the galaxy a new way to fight. Captain watched from his ship and allowed himself a small smile. This was only the beginning. The High Command gathered in their war chamber deep within their command ship. The room was dark and hot, the way their species preferred. 12 Hive Lords sat in a circle, their antennae twitching with agitation. For the first time in their conquest of Coalition space, they were discussing something they had never experienced before: defeat. "These humans are a threat," Hive Lord clicked in their language. "They defeated a force 4 times their size. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They hunted our warriors like prey." "They are one species," another Hive Lord responded. "One small force. We have millions of warriors. We will crush them before they can spread their tactics to the Coalition." "Agreed," said. "We deploy the shock troops. We send the ship. We eliminate this threat now before it becomes a real problem." The order went out across space. The humans would be made an example. The galaxy would see what happened to those who opposed the Horde. Captain stood on the bridge of his flagship, reading the intelligence reports. They were mobilizing a massive force. 20 capital ships, including a vessel that could spawn thousands of warriors. The fleet was moving toward human positions at maximum speed. Lieutenant studied the tactical display. "They are coming straight at us. No attempt at deception. They want a direct confrontation." "Good," said. "That makes it easier. How long until they reach engagement range?" 36 hours at current speed." "Send word to all human ships. We advance to meet them, and get me a direct line to General." The Coalition Command Center erupted in protest when they received the human battle plan. General stood before a holographic display showing the fleet and the much smaller human force. "Captain, this is suicide. You are outnumbered 20 to 1. You need to fall back to our defensive lines where we can support you." His face remained calm on the screen. "General, we did not come here to hide behind your defenses. We came here to end this war. They want a fight. We will give them one. But your losses will be catastrophic." "No," said with quiet certainty. "Theirs will be." The channel closed, turned to Ambassador, who had been watching silently. "They are going to get themselves killed, all of them." His crystalline body pulsed with worry. "Or they know something we do not. I will go with the observation ship. Someone needs to witness what happens." Dr. Sara worked in her medical bay aboard the flagship, but her mind was elsewhere. She had spent the last 3 days analyzing biology with coalition scientists. The aliens were fascinated and horrified by her approach. She did not study them to understand them. She studied them to find ways to kill them more efficiently. Their central nervous system is distributed, she explained to a scientist. Destroying the head does not kill them immediately, but their respiratory system has a single critical point here. She highlighted a spot on a diagram. A puncture wound at this location causes immediate suffocation. This is, this is biological warfare doctrine, the scientist said quietly. Yes, Sora replied. We evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill us. We learned to kill back. They made a mistake when they attacked the coalition. They made a bigger mistake when they decided to fight us directly. Now they will learn what it means to face a species that has been perfecting the art of killing for 200,000 years. The two fleets met in the darkness between stars. The formation was impressive, a wall of warships that would terrify most enemies. They activated their weapons systems and began their standard overwhelming assault. It had worked on 100 coalition worlds. It would work again. Then the human ships did something unexpected. They accelerated forward instead of retreating. Lieutenant commanded the tactical operations from the flagship's combat center. Data flowed across her screens at a speed that would overwhelm most coalition officers. She processed it all, seeing patterns in the chaos. The fleet was powerful, but it was also predictable. They relied on overwhelming force and superior numbers. They had never faced an enemy that understood their tactics. All ships execute Pattern Delta, she commanded. Target their command vessels. Ignore the escort ships. The human fleet split into 3 groups and dove into the formation. Coalition observers watched in shock as human ships used maneuvers that seemed reckless. They flew within meters of enemy vessels. They executed turns at speeds that would tear most ships apart. One human destroyer used another ship's debris as cover, emerging to fire on a capital ship at point-blank range. But there was method in the madness. Had spent weeks analyzing battle tactics. She knew exactly how they would respond to each move. When they tried to envelop the human ships, they found themselves out of position. When they tried to concentrate fire, human ships were already moving to different locations. It was like watching a martial artist fight a much larger opponent, using the enemy's strength against them. Engineer had been busy during the journey to meet the fleet. He had taken captured technology and done things with it that made coalition scientists uncomfortable. Now, as the battle raged, he unleashed his creations. Missiles that looked like standard human weapons launched from the fleet, but when they neared ships, they released payloads that they recognized with horror. Their own biological weapons, modified and improved. The compound spread across hulls, eating through their organic armor plating. The ships were designed to be living organisms, now that biology was being used against them. The ship was their pride and greatest weapon. The massive vessel could spawn thousands of warrior organisms, overwhelming any defense through sheer numbers. It began releasing waves of attack craft, each one carrying dozens of soldiers. Captain watched the spawning process on his tactical display. Lieutenant, are you tracking this position? Yes, sir. It has moved to the center of their formation for protection. Perfect. They have just told us where their most valuable asset is. Engineer, is your special payload ready? Ready and waiting, Captain, responded with barely contained excitement. 3 human ships broke formation and drove straight toward ignoring the weapons fire that tore at their shields. They launched a barrage of missiles that penetrated the defenses, but these were not explosive weapons. They carried its masterpiece, a modified version of its own biological compounds, redesigned to target the specific genetic markers of the species. The infection spread through the ship in minutes. The massive vessel began to convulse. Its biological systems turned against themselves. The warriors it was spawning emerged deformed and dying. They watched in horror as their greatest weapon tore itself apart from within. On the ground level of space combat, Sargent led boarding parties against crippled ships. This was the kind of fighting he preferred: close quarters, personal. The Coalition had been terrified of warriors in close combat. Humans were not. His team breached a cruiser and fought their way through corridors filled with enemy soldiers. They were strong and fast, but humans had been fighting each other for. They knew every trick of close combat. When a warrior tried to overwhelm with strength, humans used leverage and technique. When they tried to use their natural weapons, humans used tools and technology. One of soldiers was grabbed by a warrior twice his size. The Coalition observers watching through helmet cameras expected to see the human killed. Instead, the soldier activated a device on his belt. An electromagnetic pulse stunned and the human broke free, delivering a series of strikes that left the warrior unconscious. But the boarding parties were not just fighting. They were planting devices throughout the ships, remote access nodes that would give humans control of enemy systems, trackers that would reveal supply lines, data collectors that would steal every piece of information from the ship's computers. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, 15 ships were destroyed or crippled. There was dead, its corpse drifting in space. The remaining 5 vessels retreated at maximum speed. The human fleet had lost 1 destroyer and suffered damage to 2 other ships. No human vessels were destroyed. But more importantly, the humans had captured 3 ships mostly intact. Engineer was already aboard one, taking apart their systems and learning their secrets. General stared at the battle reports in disbelief. The humans had won, not through superior numbers or technology, but through superior tactics and absolute ruthlessness. They had turned the strengths into weaknesses. They had used the enemy's biology against them. They had fought a battle that should have destroyed them and emerged victorious. Ambassador arrived at the human flagship 6 hours after the battle. He found Captain on the bridge, calmly reviewing damage reports, as if he had not just won an impossible victory. Captain, the Coalition Council wishes to express their gratitude for your victory. They want to hold a ceremony. Ambassador interrupted gently, we do not have time for ceremonies. The retreated, which means they are regrouping. They will send more forces. We need to press our advantage. Press your advantage. Captain, your fleet needs repairs. Your people need rest. We will repair and rest while advancing into territory. They came looking for a fight. We are going to give them more than they bargained for. Felt that now familiar sensation of fear. Captain, what are you planning? Turned to face him fully. His expression was not cruel or angry. It was simply determined. They think they can retreat, regroup, and return stronger. They are wrong. We are not here to fight a defensive war. We are here to end the threat. That means we take the fight to them. We hit their supply lines. We attack their bases. We hunt them across the stars until they understand that challenging humanity was the worst mistake they ever made. On there, the High Command received reports of the defeat. Hive Lord read the casualty numbers and felt something their species rarely experienced: fear. These humans were not like the Coalition. They did not fight to survive or defend. They fought to win. They fought to dominate. They were predators and they had just become prey. What do we do? A younger Hive Lord asked. Looked at the holographic display showing human fleet movements. The humans were not retreating or celebrating. They were advancing, moving deeper into space with terrifying purpose. We prepare, said. We mobilize everything, because if we do not stop them, these humans will hunt us to extinction. The war had changed. They were no longer the hunters. They were being hunted, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity decided to show what they were truly capable of. The Coalition Council chamber had never been so divided. Ambassador stood before representatives of 40 species, all arguing about the same thing: the humans. Half the council wanted to award them medals and unlimited resources. The other half wanted them sent back to Earth immediately. "They saved us," representative of the argued. "Without human intervention, we would have lost 6 more colonies by now." "They terrify me more than the," representative countered. "Have you seen the combat footage? The way they fight? They enjoy it. They smile during battle. What kind of species does that?" Raised his appendages for silence. "The reality is that we are winning this war because of humanity. But we must also acknowledge that we may have invited something into our galaxy that we do not fully understand." Before the debate could continue, alarms sounded throughout the coalition headquarters. General's voice came over all channels. "Emergency meeting. They have launched an attack on Earth itself." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives' worst fears had come true. If the destroyed Earth, the humans would either be recalled home or become desperate and unpredictable. Either outcome was terrible for the coalition. The intelligence reports came in quickly. A massive fleet had used a secret hyperspace route to bypass all coalition defenses. They had jumped directly to Earth's solar system. 200 warships against humanity's. It was the largest single fleet that had ever assembled. "We need to recall the human forces immediately," General said. "They will want to defend their planet." Captain's response came 30 minutes later. His face on the screen was calm, almost relaxed. "General, Earth can handle itself. We will continue our current operations." "Captain, you're under attack by 200 warships." "Yes, I heard. Earth's orbital defense platforms are already engaging. Our home fleet will intercept within the hour. They will regret this decision." "You are not even concerned." Smiled slightly. "General, they just attacked a planet where 6 billion people have spent the last 50 years preparing for alien invasion. We have built weapons to fight wars we hoped would never come. We have defense systems designed to stop threats we imagined in our worst nightmares. They are about to learn something important. Humans are very good at killing other humans. Those same weapons work extremely well on aliens." The transmission ended. General looked at Ambassador. "Either the captain is insane, or Earth is far more dangerous than we realized." "I fear it is the second option," replied quietly. The fleet arrived in Earth's solar system expecting minimal resistance. Intelligence suggested the humans had sent most of their military to coalition space. They would be vulnerable. They were wrong. Earth's orbital defense platforms activated the moment the ships appeared. Thousands of automated weapons systems came online. Satellites that looked like simple communication devices unfolded into weapon platforms. The moon, which appeared to be a barren rock, revealed hidden missile bases. Even the asteroid belt had been militarized. The fleet commander sent the order to attack. His ships moved forward in their standard formation. Then Earth's defenses opened fire, and the commander realized they had made a terrible mistake. The weapons were brutal and efficient. Rail guns that fired projectiles at a significant percentage of light speed. Missiles with warheads designed to penetrate any armor. Laser arrays that could focus multiple beams on a single target. Energy weapons the coalition had never seen before. Kinetic kill vehicles that simply crashed into ships at devastating speeds. But worse than the weapons was the coordination. Every defense platform, every satellite, every hidden base worked together with perfect timing. It was clear that Earth had spent decades preparing for this exact scenario. They had practiced. They had planned. They had built weapons specifically designed to kill anyone who threatened their world. Down on Earth's surface, the civilian population received emergency broadcasts. Military service was voluntary on Earth, but every citizen had basic combat training. It was part of growing up on a world that knew it was vulnerable to external threats. Now, millions of volunteers reported to mobilization centers. They were ready to defend their home. A civilian engineer from the city of arrived at her local defense center. She had never expected to use her combat training. She had taken the courses because they were required, not because she thought an alien invasion would actually happen. But here she was, checking the charge on an infantry rifle and reporting for duty. "Are we really under attack?" she asked the military coordinator. "Yes, ships are engaging our orbital defenses. We do not think they will reach the surface, but we are preparing for ground assault just in case." Looked around at her neighbors and all putting on combat gear with surprising efficiency. This was what they did not understand about humans. They were not just soldiers or civilians. When threatened, every human became a defender of their species. In space, the fleet was being torn apart. They had expected resistance, but not like this. Not weapons that seemed designed specifically to counter every advantage they had. Their biological armor that had stopped coalition weapons was useless against kinetic projectiles traveling at relativistic speeds. Their numerical advantage meant nothing when Earth's automated systems could track and engage hundreds of targets simultaneously. The Earth Defense Fleet arrived 40 minutes after the battle started. These were not the ships the coalition had seen. These were vessels designed for total war. They were larger, more heavily armed and crewed by people who were defending their home. Their strategy was not careful or measured. It was absolute annihilation. Within 2 hours, 150 ships were destroyed. The remaining 50 attempted to retreat. Only 12 made it out of the solar system. The rest were hunted down and destroyed by pursuit craft that followed them into hyperspace. Earth had not just survived the attack. They had crushed it with such overwhelming force that any other species watching would think twice about threatening humanities. Back in Coalition space, Captain received the report of Earth's victory. He shared it with his command staff and Lieutenant smiled. They wanted to make us afraid. Instead, they just made us angry. "Agreed," said. "General, are you on this channel?" "Yes, Captain," the general's voice came through. "They have made a critical error. They attacked our home, our families, our planet. Before this, we were here to help the coalition. Now this is personal. I am requesting permission to implement Protocol Omega." There was a long silence. Ambassador, who was also listening, felt his crystalline structure vibrate with anxiety. "Captain, what is Protocol Omega?" "It is our total war doctrine. No more defensive operations. No more measured responses. We hunt down every military asset and destroy it. We cut off their supply lines. We strike their command structures. We make it impossible for them to wage war, not for months or years. Forever." "That sounds like genocide," said quietly. "No," Dr. Sara's voice came through the channel. She was in her medical bay, but her tone was clinical and cold. "Genocide is what they tried to do to the coalition. What we are proposing is elimination of military capacity. They can survive as a species, but they will never threaten anyone again." General made a decision he knew would haunt him forever. "Permission granted. Do what you must, Captain." The human fleet changed. Before, they had been helping the coalition. Now they were unleashed. Sergeants' ground teams began deep penetration operations into territory. They operated for weeks without resupply, living off captured equipment and what they could scavenge. They became ghosts, striking at supply depots and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. The troops began to fear the humans more than death itself. There were whispers of human soldiers who could not be killed, who hunted in the darkness, who knew your position before you did. Warriors started surrendering to coalition forces rather than face the possibility of encountering human hunting parties. Engineer created new weapons using captured technology. He understood their systems better than they did, and he used that knowledge without mercy. FTL drives became bombs. Their communication systems became tracking devices. Their biological weapons were turned back on them with devastating effect. Lieutenant coordinated strikes across a dozen star systems simultaneously. Her tactical displays showed positions in real time. thanks to the intelligence-gathering operations teams had conducted. She knew where every major asset was located, and one by one, they were being destroyed. Dr. Sora's biological research had produced results that made even her uncomfortable. She had developed compounds that specifically targeted physiology. They were not lethal, but they caused massive system failures that left warriors unable to fight. She deployed them through automated delivery systems that spread across held space. When Coalition medical officers asked her how she could develop such weapons, her response was simple. They chose to attack Earth. They chose to threaten our children. Every weapon I create, every compound I design, I do it thinking about what would have happened if they had reached our surface. I am not cruel. I am protective, and I will not apologize for defending my species. The Coalition set up refugee camps for civilians fleeing the war zones. Thousands of non-combatants surrendered, seeking protection from both the Coalition and the humans. They told stories of human soldiers who spared civilians but showed no mercy to warriors. They spoke of human medics who treated wounded even as human soldiers hunted military forces. It was this contradiction that terrified the Coalition most. The humans could be compassionate and ruthless at the same time. They could heal and harm with equal skill. They were not mindless killers. They were thinking, feeling beings who had simply decided that the military needed to be stopped, and they would stop at nothing to achieve that goal. Ambassador visited a human field hospital and watched Dr. Sora treat wounded civilians. She was gentle and professional, her hands working to save lives with the same skill she used to design weapons. "How can you do both?" asked. "How can you save them and also develop ways to harm them?" Sora looked up from her patient. "Because I am a doctor and a human, I will save anyone who needs help, but I will also protect my people from those who wish us harm. The soldiers chose war, the civilians did not. I can tell the difference. Can you?" Had no answer. He watched as human medics worked alongside Coalition doctors, saving lives with the same dedication they showed in taking them. These humans were more complex than he had imagined, more dangerous, more capable of both great kindness and terrible violence. The High Command sent a desperate message to the Coalition. They were willing to surrender. They would cede territory, pay reparations, disarm their military, anything to stop the human advance. The message reached Captain's ship. He read it carefully, then composed his response. "Tell them we will consider their surrender after we visit there." The transmission sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The humans were not satisfied with military victory. They wanted to ensure they could never threaten anyone again, and they were willing to take the war to the enemy's home to guarantee it. The Coalition Council faced the most difficult decision in their history. They were beaten, their military scattered, their leadership desperate. By any standard of civilized warfare, it was time to accept their surrender and establish peace terms. But Captain wanted to invade and the council had to decide whether to allow it. General stood before the assembly, his four arms gesturing with unusual emotion. What Captain proposes goes beyond military necessity. It is a demonstration of force meant to break the spirit forever. This is not justice. This is revenge. Ambassador rose to speak. "I understand the general's concerns, but we must ask ourselves a hard question. If we stop the humans now, if we accept the surrender and allow them to retain some military capacity, what happens in 20 years, 30? The spent generations building their war machine. They attacked 40 coalition worlds. They killed millions of our people. Can we risk them doing it again?" "So we allow genocide?" another representative asked. "No," said firmly. "The humans are not proposing to destroy the species. They want to eliminate the military threat permanently. There is a difference." The debate lasted for hours. Finally, a vote was called. The result was narrow but decisive. The humans would be allowed one final campaign. They would invade but they would be monitored by coalition observers. Any attempt at genocide would result in immediate intervention. Captain received the decision without visible emotion. Understood. We will proceed within coalition guidelines. Prepare your observers. This will be educational for them. The human fleet gathered at the edge of space. Every available ship was present. This would be the final battle, and everyone knew it. On the flagship, Lieutenant reviewed the invasion plan one last time. It was complex and carefully calculated. Not a plan to destroy a world, but to dismantle a military machine. Sergeant stood in the armory, checking his equipment. Around him, his soldiers prepared for the assault. They were quiet and focused. This was not excitement or bloodlust. This was professional soldiers preparing for a difficult job. Dr. Sora supervised the medical teams and humanitarian supplies. Yes, supplies to help civilians. The invasion would cause chaos, and she was determined to minimize civilian casualties. She had already coordinated with coalition aid organizations to set up refugee centers and medical stations. Engineer made final adjustments to the orbital strike systems. His weapons were precise, designed to destroy military targets while leaving civilian infrastructure intact. He took no joy in what was coming. It was simply necessary. The invasion began at dawn on the human ships dropped out of FTL in perfect formation. The defense fleet rose to meet them, but they were already beaten. Their warriors knew what was coming. Some fought out of loyalty or desperation. Many simply fled. The space battle was brief and one-sided. They had no answer for human tactics. Within 4 hours, the orbital space belonged to humanity. Then the ground assault began. Coalition observers watched from monitoring ships as human forces deployed to the surface. They expected massive bombardment, the kind of overwhelming firepower that would level cities. Instead, the humans used surgical strikes. Weapons facilities were destroyed. Command centers were captured or eliminated. Military barracks were targeted with precision weapons that disabled but did not kill unnecessarily. Sergeant led his team through the capital city of the. His orders were clear. Capture the military leadership, destroy weapons stockpiles, disable the command and control infrastructure. Avoid civilian casualties wherever possible. The military tried to resist. They fought in their own streets, using their own people as shields. The humans adapted. They used non-lethal weapons when possible. They evacuated civilians from combat zones. They set up aid stations even as fighting continued around them. A young warrior, barely old enough to fight, found himself surrounded by human soldiers. He raised his weapons, expecting to die. Instead, Sergeant lowered his rifle. "You do not have to die today. Surrender and you will be treated fairly." The young looked at his options: fight and die, or surrender to the humans he had been taught to fear. He dropped his weapons. Within an hour, he was in a coalition-run detention facility, unharmed and confused. The monsters he had been warned about had shown him mercy. Dr. Sora set up field hospitals throughout the city. She treated wounded without hesitation, her medical teams working alongside coalition doctors. Civilians who had been hiding emerged to find humans offering food, medicine, and protection. It was not what their leaders had told them to expect. The coalition observers sent reports back to the council. "The humans are conducting the most professional military operation we have ever witnessed. They are destroying the military capacity while actively protecting civilians. This is not genocide. This is precise elimination of military threat." The High Command made their final stand in the Grand Citadel at the heart of their capital. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and out of options. Hive Lord stood in the command chamber, watching human forces advance through the city. They moved with purpose and efficiency. They showed mercy to those who surrendered and overwhelming force to those who continued to fight. "We lost," said to the other Hive Lords. "We lost the moment we underestimated them." A communication request came through. Captain appeared on the screen. His face was calm and professional. "Hive Lord, you have 1 hour to surrender. Your military is broken. Your warriors are defeated. You can end this now, or you can watch your entire civilization's infrastructure be dismantled piece by piece. The choice is yours." Looked at his fellow Hive Lords. Some wanted to fight to the end. Others saw the reality. "What are your terms?" he asked. "Complete military disarmament. Destruction of all weapons production facilities. Your military caste will be disbanded. You will sign a treaty placing your species under coalition protection for the next 50 years. You will pay reparations to every world you attacked. Your children will be taught about the cost of aggression. And you will never, ever threaten another species again." "And if we refuse?" His expression did not change. "Then we continue what we started. We will dismantle your military capacity building by building, ship by ship, weapon by weapon. It will take months instead of hours. Many more of your people will suffer. But the result will be the same. The only difference is how much pain your people endure before you accept the inevitable." Made the decision that would define the rest of history. We surrender. The ceremony was held in the Coalition Council chambers. The leadership stood before representatives of every species they had attacked. Their defeat was complete and public. They signed treaties that reduced their military to a tiny defensive force. They agreed to reparations that would take generations to pay. They accepted responsibility for their actions. But they were not destroyed. The species would survive. Their civilians would rebuild. Their culture would continue, but without the militarism that had defined them for so long. The humans had not committed genocide. They had performed surgery, cutting out the cancer while saving the patient. General stood with Ambassador, watching the signing ceremony. "I was wrong about them," the general admitted. "I thought they were monsters, but they were just warriors who understood something we did not. Sometimes, the only way to stop a monster is to become something the monster fears." The human fleet prepared to depart. They had been in coalition space for 8 months. In that time, they had changed the galaxy. They were defeated. The coalition was safe, and everyone knew that humanity existed. A grand ceremony was held to thank the humans. Awards were presented. Speeches were made about friendship and alliance. Captain accepted the honors with grace and humility, but he also made something clear in his final speech. "We came because you needed help. We stayed because it was the right thing to do. But do not mistake us for heroes from your stories. We are survivors from a dangerous world. We learned to be apex predators because everything else on our planet tried to kill us. We learned to be warriors because we spent most of our history fighting each other. We learned to be both merciful and merciless because sometimes you need both to survive." He paused, looking at the assembled representatives. "You called for help and help came. We are glad we could assist. But remember this, we showed you what we are capable of when we fight. We showed you our weapons, our tactics, our determination. We did this to save you from but we are still here. We are still watching. Treat that knowledge with the respect it deserves." Ambassador approached Captain after the ceremony. "Will you come back if we need help again?" Smiled slightly. "That depends on what you need help with. We came because you were facing extinction from an aggressive enemy. We answered because it was the right thing to do, but we are not the galaxy's police force. We are not saviors or guardians. We are humans. We have our own problems, our own goals. We will be your allies if you treat us with respect, but we will not be your soldiers. What if another threat emerges, something worse than Then you will have learned from us. You will fight back instead of just defending. You will adapt and overcome. And if you truly need our help, if the threat is real and you have exhausted your own options, then maybe we will come again. But try to handle it yourselves first. You are more capable than you think." The human ships departed slowly, leaving behind a galaxy that was forever changed. The Coalition had learned that there were species in the universe capable of terrible violence when threatened. But they had also learned that such species could show mercy, could protect the weak, could distinguish between warriors and civilians. Lieutenant recorded her final log entry as the fleet jumped to FTL. They thought they were calling for rescue. They did not realize they were calling the monsters under the bed to come out and fight the monsters in the closet. We showed them what we are. Now they know. The question is not whether we won. We did. The question is whether they are more afraid of what we killed or what we showed them we could become. On Earth, the returning fleet was welcomed as heroes. They had protected there and helped an alien civilization survive. But they also knew the truth. They had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of. They had announced their presence with violence and victory. The universe would remember. The civilian engineer who had mobilized to defend Earth watched the celebration on her screen. She had gone back to her normal life, but she would never forget the day she put on combat gear and prepared to defend her world. Every human carried that same truth now. They were builders and creators, engineers and artists, doctors and teachers. But if threatened, they could become warriors in an instant. Began its long recovery. Children grew up learning about the war and the humans who ended it. They learned caution and humility. They learned that the universe contained species far more dangerous than they had imagined. They learned that aggression had consequences. And across the galaxy, every spacefaring species learned the same lesson. Humanity had arrived. They had shown what they could do. They had proven that a young species from a distant star could change the balance of power in the galaxy. They had demonstrated both terrible violence and surprising compassion. The Coalition Council passed a resolution. Earth would be offered full membership in the Galactic Coalition. Trade agreements would be established. Cultural exchanges would begin. But everyone understood the unspoken truth. Humanity was not just another member species. They were the ones you called when something needed to be stopped. They were the ones who would do what others could not. Captain sat in his quarters on Earth, looking at the stars through his window. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was rebuilding. They would recover but never threaten again. The coalition would grow stronger, having learned from the humans. And humanity, they would continue to grow, to explore, to reach for the stars. But they would also remember. They would remember that the universe was dangerous. That peace was precious and had to be defended. That sometimes, to protect what you love, you had to be willing to become something frightening. The real beasts had arrived. They had shown the galaxy their teeth. And then they had gone home, leaving behind a universe that was safer but also more aware. The age of innocence was over. The galaxy knew that humanity existed, and nothing would ever be the same.